I'm looking down because I loaned Ribhu to my friend, so I'm reading from my phone.
Okay.
So nice to see you again.
Yes. Namaste. Very happy to see you.
I had the great pleasure of seeing Amba read all of chapter 1 of Ribhu. Was it really recorded just this past July 5th?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Um,
So I was looking at a first release.
yeah. Yeah.
There's this, and I apologize for dividing my attention. I'm just trying to find the place. But there's this overwhelming sense of, first of all, gratitude for sure. And, you know, to all the teachers everywhere that have brought us here. And to these teachings, which are rapturously beautiful. And there's this strong sense that this isn't a personal exchange, but rather this is sort of for everyone, everywhere.
It's so impersonal, like it can't, there's nothing about it that can be personal. And because like the whole thing is like, it's just pointing beyond. It's just pointing beyond the whole world. And that's what the world is filled with. Well, it's not really actually. Seemingly, it's seemingly filled with lots of separate persons and separate individuals, but it's actually pointed beyond the whole world, beyond the whole of any world, even any idea of our world, or all ideas, even.
Sort of in preparation for getting together today, I know I recorded some verses and shared them, but after last night, well, what I found myself doing was I was listening, and it was a long recording, so I found myself drifting a little bit, but there were a few chapters where some part of me went, hang on, back up here. And what I thought I would do is I just picked, I picked 5 or 6 verses that if I could read to you, then you could just have the pleasure of hearing them. And if some response came, then you could, or we could talk about it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Where is it? Which chapter?
It's chapter 1, verse 36.
Okay. I'm just setting my alarm because I have some responsibilities.
You got people to see and things to do. I understand.
I'm here.
The self is knowledge, one and complete. It is this knowledge that remains in the practical world as the base for the body and endless conditioning factors, that is the witness of the body and all else, and that is beyond all objects of perception. Indeed, if one inquires in an unbiased manner, the self indeed is of the nature of the indivisible Supreme Brahman. I have another. As all differences are an illusory appearance on Brahman, which is not different from the self, due to conditionings of the self like the defect of nescience and conditionings of Brahman like Maya, illusion, delusion, one should realize by a process of negation that all appearances are not a whit different from the substratum, and one should cognize the originless, endless, undivided identity of the self and Brahman. So here the process of negation.
Mm-hmm.
Not this, not this, not this.
I remember some words coming from here once, kind of like a poem, and I was like, not this, and also not this. Because in a way, I suppose when we're bringing our attention back to, I suppose, the kind of nothingness inside us, or like the true self inside us, you kind of say not this, like just as a way to stop our attention being focused outwards and saying, no, I'm not that, I'm not that. But actually, that's like you bring your attention in, but once it's all the way in, it then somehow comes back out again. And in a way, there's nothing that you're not. You can't see something that you're not. Like, it's not even possible because there is nothing that you're not. In a way. Not in a way. Like, I mean, there is nothing that you're not because there's nothing apart from you.
A lot of the verses and this first chapter seems to be laying down the themes and rhythms and melodies that we're going to hear in later chapters.
Yeah.
And so many of them have these beautiful ending lines for the verses where we've gone, not this, not that, or we are without this and without that. And then the last couple of lines will say, only that.
Yeah.
All the,
Yeah.
right. So what's left? Well, if not any of this, then what?
It's like all teachings. I'm tempted to say all great teachings, but just like all teachings, I suppose they're like almost always contradictory. Like you can say one thing and then you can say the opposite thing, and like both things are true, or both things are also not true. But you can find truth in it, but you can also find truth in the opposite thing as well. And somehow, I suppose, to the mind, if you're trying to grasp hold, like if you were like brand new to these kind of teachings, it would like, well, I suppose it's good, but it would totally mess your mind up and be like, oh, like you can't grab onto it anywhere, which I guess is actually a really good thing, because that's the whole point, isn't it? Like if you're trying to understand it with your mind, you're not really going to understand it with your mind. And if it messes up your mind a little bit, like, oh, like you can't kind of grab on anywhere because you grab onto one thing, but then the opposite thing comes. So because you can't grab onto anything anywhere, then your mind kind of just has to loosen its grip on trying to find something to hold. It kind of feels like that.
There certainly has been a sense lately that in that opening, there's something very, very spacious and empty. And it's like it only wants to show itself for half of a moment, and the mind wants to jump back in. Now wait a minute, am I aware or not? This is verse 43. Whatever seems superimposed on the self is never different from the self. Brahman is not different from the self. There is no self different from Brahman. The self indeed is Brahman. Brahman indeed is the self. There is not an iota of doubt concerning this. One should always realize the identity of the self and the supreme, that I, the self, am Brahman. Amba, Brahman seems like just a word somehow. What comes to substitute, and I guess I'd like to mention that awareness instead comes sort of in place of Brahman, and I'm wondering if that's okay. And it's funny how the meaning is somehow more accessible.
Like, I feel like it's a very, of course, it's like an Indian text, an ancient Indian text, and we're not familiar so much with those words, or even if we're familiar with them, they're still, it feels like they're not in our society, you know. So I don't know, like I could be wrong about the meaning of words as well. So when I hear Brahman, I understand it, but I could be wrong. But I understand it to mean kind of everything like consciousness, like
Okay.
everything that is, you know, everything that is like consciousness, which of course is also not different than awareness.
Okay.
But like, yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they use the words interchangeably. You're probably a lot more familiar with this like text than I am actually.
Somehow, from this side, and again, maybe it's the conditioning, or being Westerners. But the phrase, the space of consciousness, is one that sort of
Yeah,
rings true,
yeah.
rings somehow more accessible somehow.
I suppose when you're talking about anything, like anyone is talking about anything, we should like clarify the words and what they mean to us, because the same words can mean different things to different people, and they often do as well. Because a word is just a word to describe something. It's not actually even the thing itself, ever, of course. And so if that's what it means to you, then it can't be wrong. You're saying that's what it means to you. So to you, it means awareness, and to me, it means consciousness. And
Mm.
they're both the same.
Okay.
Like even awareness, I don't know, somehow like people use the word awareness for like the self, and of course we're aware of everything. And like you said last time, I'm aware that I'm aware. And but I feel like when I'm aware that I'm aware, even though they're words, like in that place, everything kind of starts to disappear. Like I mean, like in that space, there isn't even really like a world or even the word awareness or a concept of awareness, even though we kind of use those words. So in that way, maybe awareness is kind of like aware consciousness, because to be able to speak about anything, we can only really speak in this world, you know. So like what we truly are is beyond this world, and we can't really say anything about that, even though awareness is often used. But somehow, I don't know, just right now, I don't know. right now I feel like there's no word, like not even awareness for, I suppose, like the self. You can use the self, but like it's the self is so open ended, you know, because it's not given it any qualities. Even to say awareness, it's almost like giving the self a quality of awareness. You know, I don't know if it makes sense, but that's just the feeling right now in this moment. I don't know, somehow the expression can change. Is that I think what was I feel like that?
What's come in the last couple of weeks is the question has popped up in meditation, along with who am I, and to whom are these thoughts and
Mm,
sensations occurring? Am I aware now?
yeah.
And the answer is so obvious that it doesn't even sort of, it's like the next recognition is, well, that answer,
Mm,
which comes kind of by itself, is
mm,
unnecessary.
mm.
Well, yes, well, of course I am.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
And then you spoke of a deepening, and so it seems like the opportunity in meditation is for that deepening just to kind of happen by itself.
Mm,
um, and definitely in the last couple of weeks, I don't know if it has anything to do with hanging out with Amba here and there, but that deepening feels sort of like boundaryless cloud somehow, spacious and expanding and very, very, very quiet. I'm moving my finger, finding the right verse here is 58. Here comes 56.
mm.
So the one thing that's talked about, and it's a funny kind of a thing, but the repetition all through these verses is somehow intimidating to me. Like the ego is a ball of dough, and the repetition takes that ball of dough and flattens it into a pancake, and then throws it away.
Sounds good. Be intimidated.
And so from here, there's inspiration at Amba's courageous powering through the repetitive nature
Mm,
of the verses in chapter 1. So I want to start with, or go back to 58 and 59, which is where that really came home. And this was the
mm,
point where um, the hand just went to the mouse and said, "Okay, back that up a little bit. Let's make sure we're really taking this
mm,
in." The nature of the self is a mass of truth, consciousness, bliss. The nature of the self is a complete, full perfection, all. The nature of the self is the eternal and the attributeless. The nature of the self is partless and untainted. The nature of the self is the pure space of consciousness. The nature of the self is the subtlest of the subtle. The nature of the self is the non-dual reality. The nature of the self is one undivided essence. Therefore, there is not an atom separate from the self, the one undivided essence. You are that self, which is a mass of knowledge. There's not an iota of doubt in this declaration. Sage of supreme tapas, you will be liberated from the bondage of worldly misery by reaching the differenceless, undivided certitude of the self, that I, the self, am ever of the nature of the exalted Supreme Brahman.
Like that, just to bring your attention back to really, really not to anything, but to stop giving your attention to things. You know, sometimes people talk about bringing your attention inwards or something. You don't even have to do that. It's more like, well, I mean, it's just different ways of saying the same thing. Well, I feel like it's like when you don't actually focus your attention kind of opens and then maybe even disappears because you don't need your attention. You don't need your attention to just be yourself. But yeah, you know that you're just yourself. Like, so to look at something, you need attention. You know, like for me to look at you, like I need attention. Well, my attention rests and it's not focused. It's just here. You know, I just feel like I don't know exactly what I was going to say, but just that it's so beautiful. It's just so beautiful, and that's what it is. It's like it's just saying this certitude. You know, it's given so many words to be sure that that is what you are, and to be sure that that's what you are. It's like maybe in the beginning, or maybe not even in the beginning. The beginning, the middle, and the end are the same in a way. But just anytime you feel like you want to just like check who am I. You know, if you feel so inclined. But how do you check is just like that, like to just like let go of attention, just open attention, because you don't have to really look for yourself to be yourself. You know, sometimes there can be a looking. I want to look inside. I want to look into the deepest part in you. You don't have to do that really, because who is the one looking? Like even that sense of looking is something that's appearing in you. So actually, just when you just stop everything, then the self is just here, like shining already. So I suppose these words are just they're just encouraging us to be really sure. Like that's the word conviction, isn't it? Be convicted. Is it convicted? Convinced. Have the conviction. Have the conviction. It's like convinced. You're completely sure, and of course you're completely sure every time you check. Like if you went like that and checked, do I have a hand? And you, oh, I do have a hand. It's kind of a silly example, but then you forget, okay, because you're not looking at your hand. Like actually, you don't really know if you have a hand or not when you're not looking at it. Oh, do I have a hand? Oh, I do. So if every time you look, you have a hand, you're going to be convinced you have a hand. So kind of like that. It's like every time you actually stop everything, then you're just here, and that is just here, like your attributes, all of those descriptions that Ribhu gives so beautifully. Like all of that is just here when you stop everything. So you don't even have to look in a way. You actually cease everything, and then when you cease everything, then you're just here. So it's not a great example looking at the hand, because you might think, oh well, I do have a hand because every time I look at a hand. But you have to actually use the focus to look, and you're actually using your mind. So that's like the mind has a hand. The mind imagines it has a hand. Well, anyway, sorry. It reminds me of I want to get this because when you were reading, it reminded me. It's just a beautiful words from somewhere else in the Ribhu Gita, and it basically says it's like to just be sure of yourself and have the certitude that I am that. It's just like a beautiful bath, like a sublime bath.
That's coming in Sublime Bath, chapters 4 and 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe I don't even remember.
it makes me truly, truly hope that Amba will continue to read the verses and put them up on YouTube in sequence.
Yeah, I'd like to. I will. I'll try and do chapter 2 next. Okay, I'm going to read this. You'll know where it's from. Probably. I am of the nature of truth alone. I am of the nature of awareness alone. I am of the nature of happiness alone. I am of the nature of the one alone. I am of the nature of the emotionless alone. I am of the nature of the self alone. I am of the nature of Brahman alone. Such I am Brahman certitude is the sublime. I think it's so beautiful. I know it's like it's no different than like the whole rest of the book. It's like everything in this text is like saying the same thing over and over again. But somehow at different times certain words speak even not really, they all speak beautifully. But I don't know, somehow when you were speaking, it's like it reminded me of that. Like it's like a sublime that. I think it's like beautiful word.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The chapter opens with a question of, what's the proper approach or oblation for the bath?
Mm-hmm.
And Ribhu's answer is this is it. What he just said.
Yeah.
What you just read.
Mm-hmm. Oh, another way, I suppose, that maybe like a more Western way of saying all these same things is just like don't get caught up in all of that we see. Don't get confused with anything that we see as being ourselves, because we're none of that. We're only ever the self, and just check and be sure that that's who you are. And I want to say as well that like it's never hidden. Like sometimes we can believe that it's hidden, and even that, I don't know, it kind of feels like an idea even that we get glimpses, we see it for like a second and then it's gone or something. But even that, it's like it's not really true. Like, so we shouldn't believe any thoughts like that. It's like that, even that itself, it's just a thought, because how can it be hidden? How can you be hidden from yourself? You are yourself. Like sometimes it becomes really clear, maybe to the mind as well. Like it can shine in the mind. The mind doesn't really know anything because it's not a separate thing, but it does seem to shine through the mind sometimes, and things experientially can feel like that, but it's just an experience. And that experience, that we call a glimpse, it's never going to stay like that, because experiences change all the time. So we shouldn't be looking for a certain experience, like a certain feeling even, or whatever way experience shows itself. It can show itself in many different ways. But this truth that Ribhu is pointing to is completely beyond experience, and it's never hidden from us. Like even to say those words, it sounds so ridiculous. Of course it can't. You can't hide from yourself, because the whole thing is there's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere else. There's nothing else. There's nothing apart and nothing different from us or from you.
There's still a very strong desire to come back, to come back to Ribhu. And while watching Amba read, it's almost like between verses, she looked up at the camera as if she was enjoying hearing Ribhu sing along with us.
Sure, of course. It's beautiful. And naturally, like life loves itself, doesn't it? This is like the whole Ribhu Gita. It's like, yeah, Gita means song, isn't it? It's like the song of Gita, so it's like a song, and it's his own song, like he's singing of himself. So of course, like it feels really natural that life is going to enjoy enjoy itself. It's singing of itself and of its own wonder. Like we all have different expressions, you know, like, so this is Ribhu's kind of expression and his way of speaking. But I feel like something that's so beautiful is just like in whatever form, like when anybody kind of praises God or life, or basically that's just, it's a form of loving yourself. It's like the self loves itself. It's like, what does Muji say? Muji has some words. He says something like, love loves to love. It's nothing personal. Like it's just naturally life loves itself. It's the most natural thing. It's like it's not loving itself as something different. It's just its natural expression. You know, so it's like, it's the same as like a child. If a child is playing, let's say a child is like doing a cartwheel or something, or any kind of play, like they're just like so happy to, they're just enjoying themselves, I suppose. It's just like enjoying yourself, loving yourself. It's the same thing. So in the same way, Amba also enjoys hearing all the words of Ribhu Gita.
Is that our 30 minutes?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to make it long next time.
Oh, I'd love that. In 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, I won't have another thing at the top of the hour, so we could go longer if we wanted to. 3 things, if I may. One is Amba should have a glass of water next to her when she's reading.
Okay. Yeah, my voice was going all. Was it?
So they teach us in voice class you should have 2 liters of water before you go to do recording, and if you don't, then you're playing catch up. So always good to have a glass of water nearby.
Okay, good advice.
And to take that extra breath, the Amba's silence between verses and that conspirational look, there's a transmission there that's really incredible. So take your time. And then at the end of chapter 1, I know you've been reading a long time, and I could, of course, anyone could see the bliss there. And I would simply encourage you to hang in another minute or two in silence. Yeah. I'm already so so grateful. It feels greedy though, I must say, because I'm already so grateful for you sharing yourself like you do. To ask for another couple of minutes at the end feels greedy.
It's actually good. It's good. I like if I'm just kind of here and being kind of just guided what to do, and then if it feels right, then I'll do it. So I hear what you say, so then we'll see if it happens or not.
Very good. Very good. The other thing is more of a personal nature, but I'll share it anyway, and it's that the sound of the voice inside my head is taken on an Irish accent.
Yeah.
So that's okay. It's beautiful. I'm inside. I feel like I'm hearing the voice of my own true self when when we talk. So it's very beautiful. And again, it feels like, of course, Ribhu is singing down through the ages, but it also feels like any time you amplify on what's being said, that it really is for anyone watching this, years from now, who maybe sees an entire chapter, and then maybe there's a little extra commentary hidden somewhere out there on the, on the YouTube or somewhere out on the World Wide Web. So
maybe I'll connect them together somewhere.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you so much. It's really nice to have this time with you.
Oh, you don't know the half of it, sister. Okay, in 2 weeks. Okay, be well, stay safe.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.